In 1935, a Kansas farm wife stood at her kitchen counter with nothing but a loaf of stale bread nobody would eat, 3 eggs from her henhouse, and 2 cups of milk from the morning milking. She tore bread into chunks, whisked eggs with sugar and vanilla, and baked the mixture until golden. Her family of 8 devoured every spoonful, calling it the best dessert they'd tasted all month, despite costing only 60 cents. That simple recipe, passed down through Depression-era kitchens through the 1980s. Let's rediscover these 30 forgotten bread puddings that fed entire families but now disappeared. Classic vanilla raisin bread pudding was the most lovable dessert at Depression-era tables from 1930 through 1985. Stale bread transformed into warm comfort that families requested constantly. These cost 60 cents per recipe, using day-old bread, eggs, milk, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, and raisins. Housewives tore 8 cups of stale bread into chunks and placed them in greased dishes. 4 eggs whisked with half-cup sugar, 3 cups milk, vanilla, and cinnamon until smooth. Raisins folded into bread distributed sweet bursts throughout. Egg mixture poured over bread soaked everything. Pans sat 15 minutes so bread absorbed custard completely. Puddings are baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until golden. One recipe fed 8 to 10 people for almost nothing. Chocolate bread pudding turned stale bread into rich dessert when cocoa powder transformed simple ingredients into decadent comfort from 1940 through 1980. These cost 85 cents per recipe, using day-old bread, cocoa powder, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, and vanilla. Housewives tore bread into chunks and arranged in buttered baking dishes. They whisked cocoa with sugar to eliminate lumps. The mixture poured over bread-soaked chunks completely. Everything sat 20 minutes for absorption. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops crusted and centers set soft. Some added chocolate chips for extra richness. One recipe fed 8 people generous portions. Children preferred this over vanilla every time. The deep chocolate flavor satisfied serious cravings. Church potlucks featured it alongside vanilla versions, some topped with whipped cream before serving. Caramel bread pudding brought butterscotch sweetness to church tables from 1945 through 1980, when brown sugar created deep flavor. These cost 90 cents per recipe, using stale bread, brown sugar, eggs, milk, butter, vanilla, and heavy cream. Housewives made caramel sauce first by melting brown sugar with butter until bubbling. Heavy cream stirred in created smooth sauce. Bread cubes soaked in mixture made from eggs, milk, and vanilla. Half the caramel sauce drizzled over bread before baking. Everything baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until golden. Remaining caramel warmed and poured over servings. One recipe fed 8 people. The caramel flavor tasted like expensive candy. Children licked plates clean. Church ladies competed over sauce thickness and sweetness. By 1980, jarred caramel toppings replaced homemade sauce. Bourbon bread pudding brought New Orleans sophistication to church gatherings from 1950 through 1980, when adventurous cooks embraced boozy desserts. These cost $1.20 per recipe, using French bread, bourbon, eggs, heavy cream, sugar, butter, vanilla, and raisins. Housewives cubed day-old French bread into large chunks. Eggs whisked with cream, sugar, bourbon, and vanilla created rich custard. Raisins soaked in extra bourbon plumped before folding through. Bread soaked 30 minutes in bourbon custard. Everything transferred to buttered dishes and baked at 350 degrees 1 hour. Bourbon sauce made separately from butter, sugar, and whiskey drizzled over warm servings. One recipe fed 10 people portions with noticeable alcohol warmth. Adults appreciated sophisticated flavor. Children avoided it completely. The French bread created better texture than regular sandwich bread. apple cinnamon bread pudding brought autumn orchards to church potlucks from 1935 through 1985, when fresh apples transformed stale bread seasonally. These cost 75 cents per recipe, using bread, apples, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Housewives peeled and diced 3 large apples into half-inch pieces. They tossed apples with cinnamon and sugar. Bread cubes layered with spiced apples in greased dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, melted butter, and vanilla poured over everything. Extra cinnamon sprinkled across tops. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until apples softened and tops browned. One recipe fed 8 people. 5 bread puddings revealed, 25 more forgotten recipes waiting. The first batch cost under $1 each and fed 8 to 10 people using stale bread nobody wanted. The next 5 include Thanksgiving pumpkin, tropical coconut, and southern pecan variations that stretched Depression-era budgets creatively. Pumpkin bread pudding brought Thanksgiving spices to church holiday dinners from 1940 through 1985, when pumpkin pie filling transformed leftover bread. These cost 80 cents per recipe, using bread, canned pumpkin, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and vanilla. Housewives mixed pumpkin puree with eggs, milk, and spices until smooth. Brown sugar dissolved into mixture. Bread cubes tossed with melted butter before adding pumpkin custard. Everything combined and poured into greased pans. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until set. One recipe fed 8 people portions that tasted like pumpkin pie without crust. The spice combination filled kitchens with holiday aroma. Children ate it for breakfast after Thanksgiving. Church November dinners featured it alongside traditional pies, some topped with whipped cream. Coconut bread pudding brought tropical flavor to Midwest church tables from 1950 through 1980, when shredded coconut transformed plain bread pudding. These cost 95 cents per recipe using bread, sweetened coconut, eggs, coconut milk, sugar, butter, and vanilla. Housewives toasted half the coconut in dry skillets until golden and fragrant. Bread cubes mixed with untoasted coconut in baking dishes. Custard made from eggs, coconut milk, regular milk, and sugar poured over bread. Toasted coconut sprinkled across tops. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until golden. One recipe fed 8 people. The coconut flavor felt exotic in plain communities. Children either loved or hated coconut completely. Church ladies who traveled to Hawaii brought back this recipe. Some added pineapple chunks for extra tropical taste. Lemon bread pudding brightened heavy church dinners from 1945 through 1975, when fresh citrus cut through rich winter meals. These cost $1 per recipe, using bread, fresh lemons, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, and lemon zest. Housewives juiced 3 large lemons and grated zest before discarding peels. Bread cubes soaked in custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, lemon juice, and zest. Melted butter added richness. Everything baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until set and lightly browned. Pecan bread pudding brought Southern richness to church gatherings from 1940 through 1985, when expensive nuts elevated humble bread. These cost $1.30 per recipe, using bread, pecans, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, and bourbon optional. Housewives toasted pecans in ovens until fragrant and chopped them coarse. Bread cubes mixed with half the pecans in buttered dishes. Remaining pecans scattered across tops. Butterscotch bread pudding brought candy shop flavor to church potlucks from 1950 through 1980, when brown sugar and butter created rich sauce. These cost 90 cents per recipe, using bread, brown sugar, butter, eggs, milk, vanilla, and heavy cream. Housewives made butterscotch sauce by melting butter with brown sugar until bubbling. Heavy cream stirred in created smooth caramel. Bread cubes soaked in custard, made from eggs, milk, and vanilla. Half the butterscotch sauce folded through before baking. Everything baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until golden. Remaining sauce warmed and drizzled over servings. One recipe fed 8 people. The butterscotch flavor tasted like homemade candy. Children requested it over chocolate sometimes. Church bake sales featured it as specialty item. The brown sugar created deeper flavor than white sugar versions. Some added butterscotch chips for extra richness. By 1980, jarred toppings replaced scratch sauce. Did your grandmother make real butterscotch? 10 bread puddings down, 20 more waiting. The first batch showed vanilla, chocolate, and caramel basics. The second revealed seasonal pumpkin, tropical coconut, and expensive pecans. The next 10 feature regional specialties and holiday variations that define church potluck creativity across America. Maple bread pudding brought Vermont sugar shacks to New England church suppers from 1930 through 1985, when pure maple syrup replaced white sugar entirely. These cost $1.50 per recipe, using day-old bread, real maple syrup, eggs, heavy cream, butter, vanilla, and salt. Housewives measured pure maple syrup carefully because grade and season affected sweetness. Early spring syrup ran lighter and milder than late-season amber varieties that brought robust flavor. Bread cubes arranged in buttered baking dishes, custard made from beaten eggs, heavy cream, maple syrup, melted butter, vanilla, and pinch of salt whisked until smooth and poured over bread. Everything sat 30 minutes for complete absorption. Puddings baked at 325 degrees 1 hour until edges set firm, but centers remained slightly soft and wobbly. The lower temperature prevented maple from becoming bitter through overheating. One recipe fed 10 people generous portions that tasted like breakfast pancakes transformed into elegant dessert. The amber color ranged from pale gold to deep brown depending on syrup grade used. Church fundraisers in maple-producing regions featured these as local specialties, showcasing family sugar bush operations. Children who tapped trees with grandfathers appreciated pudding more than store-bought candy. Some families topped servings with extra maple syrup drizzle or candied walnuts that complemented flavor naturally. The heavy cream created luxurious texture milk versions couldn't match. Real maple syrup cost significantly more than imitation varieties, making these special occasion desserts rather than weekly offerings. Winter church suppers served them warm, with vanilla ice cream melting into maple custard. The woodsy aroma filled fellowship halls with New England comfort. By 1985, real maple syrup prices made these impractical, when cheaper desserts satisfied crowds equally. Did your Vermont grandmother use family syrup? Cherry bread pudding brought summer orchards to church picnics from 1945 through 1980, when fresh cherries transformed ordinary bread pudding seasonally. These cost $1.20 per recipe, using stale bread, fresh cherries, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, almond extract, and lemon zest. Housewives pitted 2 cups fresh cherries using manual cherry pitters, removing stems and stones while keeping fruit as intact as possible. They tossed pitted cherries with small amount of sugar and flour to prevent excessive juice release during baking. Bread cubes mixed with half the cherries in greased baking dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, melted butter, almond extract, and lemon zest whisked smooth and poured over bread cherry mixture. Remaining cherries scattered across tops for visual appeal. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until cherries softened and released pink juice that bled into custard beautifully. The almond extract enhanced cherry flavor naturally through shared chemical compounds. One recipe fed 8 people portions studded with whole cherries throughout. The fresh cherry season lasted only 3 weeks, making these rare summer treats. Church ladies competed over who brought first cherry pudding each June, signaling summer's official arrival. Sour cherries berries worked better than sweet varieties because tartness balanced custard sweetness perfectly. Some bakers used canned cherries during winter months, though texture and flavor never matched fresh versions. Children counted cherry pieces in their servings, competing over who received most fruit. The pink-streaked custard looked beautiful when scooped onto plates. By 1980, fresh cherry pitting seemed too labor-intensive when canned pie filling offered convenience. Did your grandmother pit cherries by hand every summer? Blueberry bread pudding brought wild berry patches to church gatherings from 1940 through 1980, when fresh blueberries dotted bread pudding with purple bursts. These cost 90 cents per recipe, using bread, fresh blueberries, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, lemon juice, cinnamon, and vanilla. Housewives picked blueberries early morning when dew kept them cool and firm, selecting only ripe berries without green shoulders. They rinsed berries gently and patted dry completely because excess water made pudding soggy. Bread cubes tossed with half the blueberries in buttered dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, lemon juice, cinnamon, and vanilla poured over bread-berry mixture. Remaining blueberries scattered across tops. Small pats of butter dotted over everything added richness. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until blueberries burst and released purple juice that created marbled appearance throughout custard. The lemon juice brightened blueberry flavor and prevented pudding from tasting flat. One recipe fed 8 people. Wild blueberries tasted more intense than cultivated varieties, but required hours of picking for enough fruit. Church members who knew secret wild patches picked them clean before sharing locations. Children emerged from blueberry picking with purple-stained fingers and mouths that took days to fade completely. The cinnamon added warmth that complemented blueberries unexpectedly well. Some families served with lemon sauce drizzled over warm portions. Fresh blueberries created best results, but frozen worked during winter months if thawed and drained first. By 1980, canned blueberry pie filling replaced fresh berries in most recipes. Did your grandmother pick wild blueberries? Cranberry bread pudding brought Thanksgiving tartness to holiday church dinners from 1950 through 1985, when fresh cranberries transformed bread pudding seasonally. These cost $1 per recipe, using bread, fresh cranberries, orange zest, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, cinnamon, and vanilla. Housewives chopped fresh cranberries coarsely because whole berries stayed too tart and burst during baking, creating excessive tartness. They tossed chopped cranberries with extra sugar and orange zest to mellow sharpness. Bread cubes mixed with sugared cranberries in greased dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, melted butter, cinnamon, and vanilla poured over bread cranberry mixture. Everything sat 20 minutes for absorption before baking. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until cranberries softened and released ruby juice throughout custard. The orange zest brightened cranberry flavor and added citrus notes. One recipe fed 8 people portions with beautiful red streaks. The tartness divided people into devoted fans or complete avoiders. Church Thanksgiving dinners featured these alongside traditional pumpkin desserts. Children who loved cranberry sauce ate pudding enthusiastically, while others avoided it completely. Some families added chopped walnuts for texture contrast against soft bread and berries. The cranberry season lasted only November through December, when fresh bags appeared in stores. Dried cranberries worked year-round, but lacked fresh varieties' vibrant tartness and juice. The ruby color made these visually stunning on holiday dessert tables. By 1985, dried cranberries replaced fresh in most recipes completely. Did your grandmother chop fresh cranberries every Thanksgiving? Banana bread pudding rescued overripe bananas at church potlucks from 1945 through 1985, when brown spotted fruit transformed into sweet dessert instead of waste. These cost 70 cents per recipe using stale bread, overripe bananas, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Housewives mashed 3 very ripe bananas until smooth and no large lumps remained. They whisked mashed bananas with eggs, milk, brown sugar, melted butter, vanilla, and spices until well combined. Bread cubes placed in greased dishes. Banana custard poured over bread soaked everything thoroughly. Extra banana slices arranged across tops before baking added visual appeal. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until tops browned and banana slices caramelized slightly. The banana flavor intensified during baking, filling kitchens with sweet aroma. One recipe fed 8 people portions that tasted like banana cream pie without crust. The brown sugar complemented bananas better than white sugar through caramel undertones. Church ladies brought these when bananas turned too ripe for eating fresh. Children loved banana flavor more than raisins or other dried fruits. Some families added chocolate chips for banana-chocolate combination everyone requested. The overripe bananas provided natural sweetness that reduced sugar requirements. Bananas cost less than other fruits year-round, making these economical choices. The nutmeg-cinnamon combination enhanced banana flavor without overwhelming it. By 1985, people threw away brown bananas instead of transforming them into desserts. Did your grandmother save overripe bananas for pudding? 15 bread puddings revealed, 15 more waiting. The middle batch featured Vermont maple, summer cherries, and holiday cranberries. The next 5 showcase southern sweet potato, citrus marmalade, and boozy rum raisin variations that pushed bread pudding creativity across regional church potlucks nationwide. Sweet potato bread pudding brought Southern harvest flavor to church Thanksgiving dinners from 1935 through 1985, when mashed sweet potatoes elevated ordinary bread pudding. These cost 85 cents per recipe, using bread, sweet potatoes, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, and pecans optional. Housewives boiled sweet potatoes until fork tender, peeled them while hot, and mashed until completely smooth without lumps. They beat eggs with brown sugar until thick, then stirred in mashed sweet potatoes, milk, melted butter, spices, and vanilla until well combined. Bread cubes arranged in greased dishes. Sweet potato custard poured over bread soaked everything orange. Chopped pecans scattered across tops added crunch. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops browned and centers set firm. The sweet potatoes created dense, rich texture between regular bread pudding and sweet potato casserole. One recipe fed 10 people. The orange color brightened dessert tables filled with brown and beige offerings. Church Thanksgiving gatherings featured multiple sweet potato desserts competing for attention. Children who refused sweet potatoes as vegetables ate them enthusiastically in pudding form without realizing contradiction. The spice combination made kitchens smell like holiday celebrations. Some families topped servings with marshmallows that melted into gooey layer. Fresh sweet potatoes tasted better than canned, but required extra preparation time. The brown sugar created caramel notes that enhanced sweet potato flavor. By 1985, sweet potato pie dominated Thanksgiving, and bread pudding version became forgotten alternative. Did your Southern grandmother grow sweet potatoes for this? Orange marmalade bread pudding brought British breakfast spread to American church tables from 1950 through 1975, when jarred marmalade transformed bread pudding into citrus dessert. These cost $1 per recipe, using bread, orange marmalade, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, and orange zest. Housewives spread orange marmalade between bread slices before cubing, creating marmalade pockets throughout pudding. They arranged marmalade-filled bread cubes in buttered dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, vanilla, and fresh orange zest whisked smooth and poured over bread. Extra marmalade warmed and drizzled across tops before baking added intense orange flavor. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until tops caramelized slightly from marmalade sugars. The orange flavor permeated throughout custard during baking. One recipe fed 8 people portions with citrus brightness. The marmalade pieces softened and melted into bread, creating pockets of intense orange taste. Church ladies who traveled to England brought back this recipe adaptation. Children either loved bitter orange peel in marmalade or picked around it completely. Some bakers used lemon marmalade for different citrus profile. The marmalade eliminated need for separate orange juice and zest preparation steps. British-style marmalade with thick peel chunks created more textural interest than smooth versions. The orange color looked beautiful against white custard. By 1975, marmalade became old-fashioned spread nobody kept in pantries anymore. Did your grandmother use homemade marmalade? Rum raisin bread pudding brought Caribbean islands to church socials from 1960 through 1980, when dark rum transformed ordinary raisin pudding into adult dessert. These cost $1.20 per recipe, using bread, raisins, dark rum, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Housewives soaked 1 cup raisins in half-cup dark rum for at least 2 hours, or overnight, until fruit absorbed alcohol and plumped significantly. They drained raisins, reserving rum-soaked liquid for custard. Bread cubes mixed with rum-soaked raisins in greased dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, brown sugar, reserved rum, melted butter, vanilla, and spices poured over bread-raisin mixture. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops browned and rum aroma filled kitchens. The rum flavor remained noticeable after baking, though alcohol content reduced. One recipe fed 8 adults portions with boozy warmth. Children avoided these completely after first taste. Progressive churches embraced rum desserts, while conservative congregations banned alcohol entirely from fellowship halls. The dark rum complemented raisins and brown sugar through shared molasses notes. Some bakers added extra rum drizzle over warm servings for stronger flavor. The rum-soaked raisins tasted completely different from plain dried fruit. Church potluck debates centered on whether alcohol desserts belonged at religious gatherings. By 1980, liability concerns ended boozy church desserts permanently. Did your grandmother soak raisins in rum overnight? Cinnamon roll bread pudding transformed day-old bakery rolls into decadent church dessert from 1965 through 1985, when leftover cinnamon rolls replaced plain bread. These cost $1.30 per recipe, using stale cinnamon rolls, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, and cream cheese for topping. Housewives cut day-old cinnamon rolls into chunks, keeping swirls intact for visual appeal. They arranged roll pieces in buttered dishes with cinnamon swirls facing upward. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, vanilla, and melted butter poured over cinnamon roll chunks. Everything sat 20 minutes for absorption. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until tops caramelized from cinnamon roll sugars. Cream cheese frosting made from softened cream cheese, powdered sugar, and vanilla spread over warm pudding melted into gooey topping. One recipe fed 8 people portions that tasted like cinnamon rolls and bread pudding combined. The cinnamon swirls created beautiful presentation when served. Church brunch gatherings featured these when bakeries donated day-old rolls. Children requested this over plain bread pudding every time. The cinnamon roll pieces eliminated need for adding separate cinnamon and sugar. Some bakers drizzled caramel sauce over cream cheese frosting for extra indulgence. Homemade cinnamon rolls worked better than store-bought for superior flavor. By 1985, day-old bakery donations decreased when liability concerns grew. Did your grandmother use leftover cinnamon rolls? French toast bread pudding combined 2 breakfast classics into church brunch dessert from 1970 through 1985, when creative cooks merged recipes successfully. These cost 90 cents per recipe using thick bread, eggs, milk, heavy cream, sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and maple syrup. Housewives cut thick bread into French toast-sized slices before cubing, rather than using random pieces. They arranged bread cubes in buttered dishes. Custard made from eggs beaten with milk, heavy cream, sugar, vanilla, and cinnamon poured over bread exactly like French toast batter. Everything sat 30 minutes for complete saturation. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops turned golden brown and crispy like griddle-cooked French toast. Butter pats dotted across tops before baking created rich crust. Warm maple syrup drizzled over servings completed French toast experience. One recipe fed 8 people portions that blurred lines between breakfast and dessert. The heavy cream created richer custard than milk alone. Church Sunday brunch gatherings featured these alongside eggs and bacon. Children loved familiar French toast flavor in new format. Some families topped with fresh berries and whipped cream. The thick bread slices created better texture than thin sandwich bread. Challah or brioche worked beautifully for authentic French toast taste. By 1985, brunch culture declined, and these disappeared from church menus. Did your grandmother make this for Easter brunch? 20 bread puddings uncovered, 10 final recipes waiting. These middle variations showcased Southern sweet potato, British marmalade, Caribbean rum, and breakfast cinnamon rolls. The last 10 feature Christmas eggnog, summer fruits, chocolate chips, and whiskey sauce that completed Depression-era bread pudding creativity nationwide. Eggnog bread pudding brought Christmas cheer to holiday church gatherings from 1950 through 1985, when seasonal eggnog replaced milk in traditional bread pudding recipes completely. These cost $1.40 per recipe using day-old bread, store-bought or homemade eggnog, eggs, sugar, butter, vanilla, nutmeg, cinnamon, and rum extract optional for families avoiding alcohol. Housewives cubed 8 cups stale bread into bite-sized pieces and arranged them in greased baking dishes. They whisked 4 eggs with half-cup sugar until thick and pale yellow. 3 cups eggnog, stirred into egg mixture, created rich custard base, already flavored with nutmeg and vanilla from eggnog spices. Melted butter and extra vanilla enhanced flavor further. Some families added tablespoon rum extract for boozy warmth without actual alcohol content. The eggnog custard poured over bread cubes soaked everything thoroughly. Pans sat 30 minutes, allowing bread to absorb maximum liquid before baking. Extra nutmeg grated heavily across tops created speckled appearance and intense holiday aroma. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops turned golden brown and centers set with slight jiggle remaining. The eggnog's cream content created incredibly rich texture that regular milk versions couldn't match. One recipe fed 10 people generous portions that tasted like drinkable eggnog, transformed into spoonable dessert. Church Christmas dinners featured multiple eggnog desserts competing for attention, alongside traditional pies and cookies. The yellow color from egg yolks made these visually distinct from white bread puddings. Children who refused to drink eggnog ate pudding version enthusiastically without making connections. The spice combination of nutmeg, cinnamon, and vanilla filled fellowship halls with unmistakable Christmas scent that signaled holiday season officially arrived. Some bakers added raisins or dried cranberries for textural contrast and holiday color. Others preferred smooth pudding without dried fruit interruptions. The eggnog availability limited these to November through January, when stores stocked seasonal flavors. Homemade eggnog created superior results, but required separating eggs and tempering carefully to avoid scrambling. Store-bought eggnog offered convenience most church bakers preferred during busy holiday seasons. Some families topped warm servings with bourbon sauce made from butter, brown sugar, and actual bourbon for adult gatherings. Others served with simple whipped cream sweetened with powdered sugar and vanilla. The puddings reheated beautifully for next-day breakfasts when families needed quick holiday morning meals. Leftover eggnog at season's end got transformed into bread pudding rather than wasted. The rich custard meant small servings satisfied completely without needing huge portions. By 1985, eggnog became less popular as younger generations rejected thick, sweet holiday drinks their grandparents loved. The bread pudding tradition faded alongside eggnog's decline. Store-bought eggnog quality decreased when manufacturers added stabilizers and reduced cream content for cost savings. Did your grandmother make this every Christmas with homemade eggnog? Strawberry bread pudding brought June berry patches to church socials from 1945 through 1980, when fresh strawberries transformed ordinary bread pudding into elegant spring dessert. These cost $1.10 per recipe, using stale bread, fresh strawberries, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, lemon zest, and heavy cream for serving. Housewives hulled and sliced 2 cups of fresh strawberries, selecting only ripe berries without white shoulders or green tips. They tossed sliced strawberries with 1/4 cup sugar and let sit for 15 minutes to release juice through osmosis. Meanwhile, bread cubes are arranged in buttered baking dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, melted butter, vanilla, and lemon zest whisked until smooth. The macerated strawberries, with their released juice folded into custard, created a pink-streaked mixture, everything poured over bread cubes soaked thoroughly. Extra strawberry slices arranged across tops provided visual appeal and ensured fruit in every serving. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until strawberries softened and released more juice that bled throughout custard, creating a beautiful marbled appearance. One recipe fed 8 people portions studded with soft strawberry pieces. The fresh strawberry season lasted only 4 to 5 weeks. The strawberries needed to be fully ripe for maximum sweetness and color. Underripe berries created pale pudding with sour taste. Peach bread pudding brought summer orchards to church picnics. These cost $1.20 per recipe, using stale bread, fresh peaches, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, and almond extract. Housewives peeled fresh peaches by blanching in boiling water 30 seconds. The bread cubes mixed with half the peach slices in greased baking dishes. Custard poured over bread peach mixture soaked everything thoroughly. Remaining peach slices arranged decoratively across tops. Freestone peaches worked better than clingstone varieties because slicing proved easier that looked unappealing in finished puddings. Chocolate chip bread pudding brought when chocolate chips transformed simple bread pudding into children's favorite dessert. These cost $1.30 per recipe, using stale bread, chocolate chips, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, and cinnamon. Housewives cubed 8 cups day-old bread and arranged half in greased baking dishes. They scattered 1 cup chocolate chips until sugar dissolved completely. The custard poured slowly over bread chocolate layers allowed time for bread absorption without displacing chocolate chips. Everything sat 20 minutes before baking so bread soaked thoroughly. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until tops turned golden and chocolate chips melted into gooey pockets throughout. The melted chocolate created ribbons of richness, swirled through vanilla custard. One recipe fed 10 people because richness meant smaller servings satisfied completely. Children requested chocolate chip version over all others at every church gathering. The chocolate chips cost more than cocoa powder, but created superior texture with melted pockets versus uniform chocolate throughout. Church bake sales featured these as premium offerings priced higher than plain versions. Some bakers used semi-sweet chips, others preferred milk chocolate for sweeter taste. Dark chocolate chips appealed to adults who appreciated bitter notes, balancing sweet custard. The chocolate chips needed to be stirred gently to distribute evenly without sinking to bottom during baking. Some families added peanut butter chips alongside chocolate for combination flavors. The cinnamon addition enhanced chocolate flavor subtly without tasting obviously spiced. White chocolate chips created completely different flavor profile some families preferred for special occasions. The puddings served warm, showcased melted chocolate best, though room temperature versions still delivered chocolate satisfaction. Whipped cream topping added dairy richness that complemented chocolate perfectly. Some families drizzled chocolate sauce over servings for chocolate lovers who wanted maximum cocoa flavor. The chocolate chips made these feel more like bakery desserts than humble Depression-era economy cooking. The higher cost meant these appeared at celebrations and holidays rather than weekly dinners. By 1985, chocolate chips became standard pantry item rather than luxury ingredient, but bread pudding itself fell from favor when box mixes and store-bought desserts dominated. The homemade chocolate chip version represented effort and love that convenience products couldn't replicate. Did your grandmother add extra chocolate chips for special occasions? Cinnamon sugar bread pudding brought Mexican breakfast flavor to church gatherings from 1950 through 1985, when cinnamon sugar coating transformed simple bread pudding. These cost 70 cents per recipe using stale bread, cinnamon, sugar, eggs, milk, butter, vanilla, and heavy cream. Housewives mixed half-cup sugar with 2 tablespoons cinnamon in small bowls. They melted butter and brushed it over bread cubes before tossing with cinnamon sugar mixture until every piece coated completely. The cinnamon-coated bread cubes arranged in greased dishes created speckled appearance. Custard made from eggs, milk, remaining sugar, vanilla, and pinch of salt whisked smooth and poured over cinnamon bread. Extra cinnamon sugar mixture, sprinkled across tops before baking, created crunchy crust that caramelized beautifully. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until tops turned deep golden brown and edges crisped like churros. The cinnamon flavor intensified during baking, filling kitchens with warmth that smelled like Mexican bakeries. The cinnamon sugar coating created textural contrast between crunchy exterior and soft custardy interior. Church potlucks in communities with Mexican influence featured these alongside traditional versions. The coating technique meant cinnamon distributed throughout rather than settling to bottom like loose cinnamon added to custard. Some families used Mexican cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, that tasted sweeter and more complex than standard cassia cinnamon from supermarkets. The puddings served warm, maximized cinnamon aroma that filled fellowship halls invitingly. Heavy cream drizzled over warm servings melted into cinnamon custard created indulgent combination. Some bakers added raisins or chopped pecans to cinnamon sugar coating for extra texture. The simplicity meant even beginner cooks produced successful results every time. The cinnamon sugar coating prevented bread from becoming soggy, maintaining some textural integrity throughout baking. This technique separated good bakers who understood coating from those who just stirred loose cinnamon into custard. The golden brown color made these visually appealing, compared to pale bread puddings that looked unappetizing. The coating technique got forgotten when people stopped making bread pudding entirely. Did your grandmother coat bread cubes in cinnamon sugar before baking? 25 bread puddings revealed. 5 final recipes waiting. These featured Christmas eggnog, summer strawberries and peaches, childhood chocolate chips, and Mexican cinnamon sugar. The last 5 showcase molasses, coffee, almonds, dates, and bourbon whiskey sauce that completed bread pudding's creative evolution across American church potlucks. Molasses bread pudding brought dark sweetness to New England church suppers from 1920 through 1975, when molasses replaced sugar entirely in traditional recipes. These cost 80 cents per recipe, using stale bread, dark molasses, eggs, milk, butter, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and salt. Housewives measured molasses carefully. They whisked eggs until foamy, then stirred in molasses, milk, melted butter, and spices until well combined. The dark mixture looked almost black compared to pale custards. Bread cubes arranged in greased dishes, molasses custard poured over bread soaked everything dark brown. The strong molasses aroma filled kitchens during preparation and intensified dramatically during baking. Puddings baked at 325 degrees 1 hour at lower temperature, preventing molasses from becoming bitter through overheating. The ginger-cinnamon-clove combination created gingerbread flavor profile that defined New England winter desserts. One recipe fed 8 people portions with robust molasses taste that adults appreciated more than children. The dark color made these visually striking against white plates. The strong flavor divided people into devoted fans who loved assertive taste or complete avoiders who found molasses overwhelming. Some bakers added raisins or chopped dates that complemented molasses naturally. The molasses provided deep mineral notes white sugar couldn't replicate. Blackstrap molasses created 2 bitter results, while mild molasses produced weak flavor, so medium molasses hit perfect balance. The ginger addition made these appropriate for fall and winter holidays when warming spices felt most welcome. Some families served these as Thanksgiving alternatives to pumpkin pie for people who wanted something different. The dense texture and strong flavor meant small servings satisfied completely. The molasses cost less than refined sugar during Depression, making these economical choices. The tradition died when grandmothers stopped making it, and never taught recipes to daughters who found molasses too strange. Did your New England grandmother make this every winter with dark molasses? Coffee bread pudding brought morning coffee flavor to evening church gatherings from 1955 through 1980. These cost 90 cents per recipe, using stale bread, strong black coffee, eggs, sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and heavy cream. Housewives brewed coffee double strength, using twice the grounds for intense flavor that wouldn't disappear during baking. They let coffee cool to room temperature before mixing with eggs to prevent scrambling. Bread cubes arranged in buttered dishes. Custard made from eggs, cooled coffee, sugar, melted butter, vanilla, and cinnamon whisked until sugar dissolved completely. The coffee custard poured over bread created tan-colored mixture. Everything sat 30 minutes, allowing bread to absorb maximum coffee flavor before baking. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops browned and coffee aroma filled fellowship halls. The coffee flavor appealed to adults who appreciated sophisticated bitter notes balanced by sugar sweetness. One recipe fed 8 people portions that paired perfectly with after-dinner coffee service at church meetings. The caffeine content meant eating before bedtime kept some people awake for hours afterward. Some bakers added chocolate chips that complemented coffee flavor naturally through mocha combination everyone recognized. The cinnamon addition enhanced coffee flavor subtly, without tasting obviously spiced. The coffee flavor made these feel sophisticated and adult, compared to sweet raisin versions children preferred. Almond bread pudding brought European elegance to church gatherings from 1950 through 1985, when ground almonds and almond extract transformed humble bread pudding into sophisticated dessert. These cost $1.40 per recipe, using stale bread, blanched almonds, almond extract, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, and vanilla. Housewives blanched almonds by boiling briefly, then slipping off brown skins that would have discolored custard. They ground skinless almonds fine using manual nut grinders or chopped extremely fine with sharp knives on wooden cutting boards. The pale ground almonds stirred into custard created thick mixture. Bread cubes arranged in greased dishes. Custard made from eggs, milk, sugar, ground almonds, melted butter, almond extract, and vanilla whisked until almonds distributed evenly without settling. The mixture poured over bread, soaked everything with almond flavor throughout. Sliced almonds scattered across tops before baking added visual appeal and extra crunch. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until tops turned golden and sliced almonds toasted fragrant. The ground almonds created slightly grainy texture that distinguished these from smooth custard versions. One recipe fed 8 people portions with subtle almond flavor throughout every bite. The almond extract enhanced natural nut flavor without tasting artificial when used in proper small amounts. Church wedding receptions featured these as elegant alternatives to plain vanilla pudding for sophisticated celebrations. The pale color and delicate flavor made these appropriate for spring and summer gatherings. Some bakers added amaretto liqueur for adult gatherings that wanted boozy almond intensity. Blanching process removed bitter tannins from skins that would have created off flavors. Store-bought blanched almonds saved time but cost significantly more than blanching at home. The almond pieces added textural interest that smooth custard lacked, creating interest in every bite. Date nut bread pudding brought Middle Eastern sweetness to American church potlucks from 1940 through 1980, when chopped dates and walnuts elevated ordinary bread pudding into exotic dessert that transported congregations beyond their small towns. These cost $1.20 per recipe, using stale bread, dates, walnuts, eggs, milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and orange zest, combined into rich filling that tasted like candy shops and bakeries merged together. Housewives chopped dates into small pieces, using scissors dipped in water to prevent sticky fruit from clumping on blade edges. They chopped walnuts coarse, leaving some larger pieces for textural contrast against soft bread and sticky dates. Bread cubes mixed with dates and walnuts in greased dishes distributed fruit and nuts throughout, ensuring every serving contained both. Custard made from eggs, milk, brown sugar, melted butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and orange zest whisked until brown sugar dissolved completely without a grainy texture remaining. Custard poured over bread date nut mixture soaked everything thoroughly, with bakers pressing down gently to ensure complete absorption. Extra date pieces and walnut halves arranged across tops created visual appeal that made puddings look as good as they tasted. Puddings baked at 350 degrees 50 minutes until dates caramelized slightly around edges and walnuts toasted fragrant, filling kitchens with nutty sweet aroma. The dates created intense natural sweetness that reduced added sugar requirements significantly compared to plain raisin versions. One recipe fed 8 people rich portions because dates and nuts provided substantial calories that satisfied hunger completely with smaller servings. The brown sugar complemented dates naturally through caramel undertones that enhanced fruit's honey-like sweetness. Church ladies brought these during fall and winter when dates arrived from California and Middle Eastern markets in bulk quantities. The exotic dates felt special compared to common raisins everyone used year-round without thinking twice. Children either loved dates' candy-like sweetness and chewy texture or hated sticky consistency completely, with no middle ground existing between devotion and rejection. The dates needed pitting if purchased whole, requiring extra preparation time that pre-pitted varieties eliminated for busy homemakers. The orange zest brightened date flavor and prevented pudding from tasting too heavy or cloying after multiple bites. Some families added cardamom spice that complemented dates through Middle Eastern flavor profile that seemed sophisticated and worldly. The walnuts provided buttery richness and crunchy contrast against soft bread and sticky dates that created textural interest. Pecans could substitute walnuts depending on regional availability and family preferences, with Southern cooks preferring pecans always. Whiskey sauce bread pudding brought bourbon country elegance to Southern church gatherings from 1955 through 1985, when homemade whiskey sauce elevated plain bread pudding into celebrated dessert that defined regional culinary identity. These cost $1.30 per recipe, using stale bread, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, pecans, and bourbon, for sauce that transformed humble ingredients into restaurant-worthy finale. Housewives made bread pudding base using traditional method with bread cubes, eggs, milk, sugar, butter, vanilla, and cinnamon whisked together. Chopped pecans stirred through added Southern authenticity and textural contrast against soft custardy bread. The mixture poured into greased baking dishes and baked at 350 degrees 45 minutes until golden brown on top and set firm in center. Meanwhile, they prepared legendary whiskey sauce by melting half-cup butter with 1 cup brown sugar in heavy saucepans over medium heat until mixture bubbled vigorously and sugar dissolved completely. Heavy cream stirred slowly into butter-sugar mixture created smooth sauce that smelled like caramel candy. Quarter-cup bourbon added off heat provided boozy warmth without cooking off alcohol completely, preserving that characteristic throat-warming sensation. The whiskey sauce kept warm on stovetop, while pudding finished baking, requiring occasional stirring to prevent scorching. Warm pudding served immediately with whiskey sauce ladled generously over each portion, sauce pooling around bread and soaking into warm crevices. The sauce transformed bread, creating bourbon-infused dessert that adults loved passionately and children avoided completely after first taste. One recipe with sauce fed 8 adults at gatherings where alcohol acceptance was assumed without question or controversy. Church potlucks in progressive Southern congregations featured whiskey sauce bread pudding as signature dessert that defined regional identity and culinary sophistication. Conservative churches banned alcohol entirely, making these impossible at some fellowship halls regardless of culinary tradition or regional heritage. The bourbon debate divided congregations along generational and theological lines that sometimes created serious tensions between old-timers and newcomers. By 1985, liability concerns about serving alcohol at church functions ended whiskey sauce traditions completely across most congregations. Nervous committees banned boozy desserts permanently, preferring safe vanilla versions that offended nobody and risked no lawsuits. The sophisticated combination of bread pudding and bourbon sauce represented culinary height that convenience desserts could never match or replicate. The tradition died when insurance requirements and lawsuit fears overcame Southern hospitality and culinary pride that defined regional identity for generations. Did your Southern grandmother make whiskey sauce from scratch for special church suppers? Between 1930 and 1985, 30 bread puddings fed American families for under $1 each, transforming stale bread into warm comfort that nobody wastes today. Grandmothers whisked eggs with milk, folded in raisins or chocolate chips, and baked magic from leftovers. Then instant mixes arrived. Store-bought desserts replaced scratch cooking. By 1990, these 30 recipes vanished completely. Your grandmother's bread pudding recipe is disappearing right now. Share this with someone who remembers when stale bread became dessert, not trash. Comment below with the bread pudding your grandmother made best. Which forgotten recipe are you baking this Sunday? Don't let these vanish forever.